So first of all, thanks so much for being here and for the great plenary. It was really, really interesting, the points you brought up, and I think there are a few points for discussion as well, and probably a few questions. So ECSA is hosting these Meet the Expert sessions, and we're really proud to be able to do this and to provide this opportunity for people to ask more questions and to network a little bit and for discussion, even though we have to do this mostly online. So I'm Simone Rüfenacht. I work at ECSA headquarters, and I'm a project officer for the DNOSES project, and I'll be moderating this session today. So our expert is Josep Perelló, who just gave the plenary. And before I introduce Josep again, I just wanted to let you know that this session is being recorded. And up to 9 people can actually share their audio and video in the stream. So I invite you all to request to share your audio video. I see that there are 2 people. I will let you in a second. Request to share audio and video so you can join us here in the stream, and you can actually talk to us basically face to face as much as that's possible online. But if you don't want to share audio and video, feel free to also pop questions into the chat. I'll be monitoring that, and then I can try to bring them into the discussion and to pass them on to Josep. Okay, so just a quick introduction before I let people in and we start the discussion. So Josep Perelló he has a PhD in physics and is a researcher at the Institute of Complex Systems at the University in Barcelona. And as he mentioned in the plenary, he's coordinating the collective design of citizen social science for collective action, so the COACT project, which is a really new project. I'm really excited to see what's coming out of that project as well and what's happening there. And so you're working on citizen social science mainly, and the idea is to, well, it's kind of in the project, it's understood as a participatory research, co-designed and directly driven by citizen groups who share a social concern. And Josep has also founded the Barcelona Citizen Science Office in 2013 and has been coordinating it since the founding until 2018. So he has a lot of experience in this field, and I think we can all learn a lot from him. So I will let in, there are 2 people here so we can start the discussion. And they should come up in a second. There's a 3rd person. Okay. I'm not entirely sure why I cannot see the people that should come in, but anyway, I will maybe start with a question from the chat that has already been posted. So Katrin Hadash is asking, as a theoretical physicist, how come you're seeking to participate in such an immensely applied field? And I was actually thinking the same. So you said you wanted to assist the need of citizens, but was there something that triggered that? How do you come from physics to citizen social science? It's quite a leap, I guess, for many. So how is that combined? How did you get to that?
Yeah. I would say that happened gradually. So I'm a theoretical physicist, yes, but I'm coming from what is called stochastic processes and random processes. And also my first studies were already on which kind of processes better suit or can better explain financial markets, which is already a social system. So at that moment, so new technologies and data was coming from everywhere. And I felt like it was not that fair just to keep the studies on social systems, taking Twitter analysis or taking other kind of data and trying to understand that in a theoretical point, or at least as a statistical physicist, or providing new models. And I felt like it was more necessary to go and to get hands dirty, and just to, if we want some data, let's do that together with the data with the people that is providing this data. And then it's when everything gets messy, and you just need to also to do not only what you want, but also to do what others people want, and which are the participants. So and that's why also I have become I would say that is not applied physics, or at least applied, but is more, let's say, empirical. No? So we are now at least on the stage that we are just doing a lot of experiments, no? Because there was nothing, and there is nothing. And this is always the beginning of something that can be more theoretical, if you want.
Thank you. Danielle was just raising her hand. Hi, Danielle, welcome.
Hi.
I'll let you ask your question next.
Josep, thank you for your talk. It's great to see your work. I'm interested in how you negotiate questions of rigor, because the fantastic thing about working with communities in the ways that you're describing is that they have a different understanding of rigor, and they have a different understanding of importance, and it's critical for us as researchers to accept and embrace their understandings, but they don't necessarily correlate very easily with of us from funding bodies, from institutions, from other things. And I'd love to hear a bit about how you negotiate that difference and, you know, get the sort of more institutional, established, rigid, less up-to-date perspectives on board.
Yeah. Well, first of all, yeah, I would say that that I think that we need, even in academics, much more flexibility. No, as you can imagine, I don't know if you see it behind, but this is part of a public infrastructure. No, so at least even in physics department, there is no place to keep that. So there is no other option that you keep it in your office, right? So at least in that sense, so we have to, in a way, be more flexible with rigor, no? Or at least how the structure works inside the university. That's the first issue. But secondly, as I think that this is where you go, is that maybe they were raising some other interest, no? That they are not easy to fit in, no? So that's also a challenge, I would say, no? Because we really try to align as much as possible the two interests, okay? And I would say that not as much. We just listen to them and try to respond, okay, and be a scientist, no? So, but still, so I think that it's not just a matter of rigor, is that they might have already the questions, and I think that listening to these questions is really great, at least from my perspective, and publishing in better journals than before, because the questions maybe are much more socially relevant, no? So that's one thing. And secondly, yes, for instance, I'm just talking not about individuals, but also maybe about civil society organizations, no? So let's say that this kind of scientific approach is not yet really in the way of working of these institutions, no? So what I mean by that, okay, so for instance, just an example, no? So we can work with a specific institution that they are really worried about gender issues, no? But they are already convinced that this is an issue, okay? But sometimes they don't think about, I must provide further arguments, I must provide further evidence to support my demands, no? So this is the kind of logics that I think that at least culturally, also I think that it would be great if more and more civil society organizations really start to play this game, no? So, and it is already happening, hopefully, no? Unfortunately, but because I'm just having, for instance, that we have, there is an association here in Barcelona that is just counting how many people, how many people is just sleeping in the street, no? So this is they already have a protocol. They are rigorous on that, no? And this is a wonderful set of data, no? So they are already some institutions that they are already on that page, no? Others, they will just stick that there is an issue about homeless in Barcelona, no? And they will stop there. But they already know that if they engage people and they make this counting together with volunteers around Barcelona, they appear in the media. So because it is a big citizen movement then, no? So I think that we must make also understandable to everybody that a scientific research can be also a civic movement. Okay, so still we need already still to fit in how this works, no? But and for making that possible from scientists' perspective, I would say that we need to work much in a way that is maybe not our way. It's more a way like, for instance, a cultural a museum is working, no? When they build an exhibition, they do a kind of production which is very different from the rigor that we usually work with.
I mean, what was also embedded in my question was also, you know, I'm completely on board with what you're speaking about, and my work aligns quite closely with many of the things that you're bringing forward. And where the struggle, from my perspective, is often getting the listening of the funding bodies, the listening of, and so we get to do a lot of really great work, but there is always this enormous it's you either get great funding or you fall through the cracks because you're operating at the interstices between these two worldviews, if you like. And being in academia, we are somewhat beholden to the worldviews of the academic infrastructures and the funding bodies who make our work possible, but who also aren't necessarily structurally aligned with the cutting edge of thinking that you get exposed to when you're on the ground.
Yeah.
And so you know, is that a question of changing policies? Is that a question of do you end up doing a lot more work? For example, I noticed that you launched and for a long time ran the Barcelona office, citizen science office. Is that part of the work of helping to broker better alignment between what you see as important and necessary by being on the ground and what the infrastructures that we work within and are beholden to make possible?
Totally, yeah. So I briefly just answer with another example, because honestly, also I can also share experiences that are quite local, no? So at the city level, I would say. Okay, so for instance, the municipality of Barcelona, now they are just starting a strong campaign of removing cars. Okay, so they are not allowing to enter some cars with some levels of emissions. Okay, and they are receiving a strong pressure from media, from many other places, because they are against that. No, they say that they are taking out our freedom. No, so they with this notion. No, but I think that the strategy then of citizen science can really help in the sense, okay, maybe you might agree or disagree with this policy, but let's start measuring the air quality of your street where you're living. Okay, next to your house. Okay, and that's what we did in schools. And you then discover that the levels are really bad. You will start thinking in a different manner. Okay, so but this starts from the research perspective, from starting with the question, not with the answer. And sometimes policymakers are too used to just go to the answer without sharing the question.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danielle, for the great question.
Hello.
I'd like to pass on to Miguel for next. Welcome, Miguel.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, I think I love your talk. I think it's sometimes we need to see things a little bit more philosophically. And I am a practitioner, community-based monitoring practitioner. I'm a development consultant in the field of water and environment. Sometimes I feel like I've been intimidated among so many researchers. And yesterday, at the end of the day, I had a feeling of missing a little bit discussions around the specific United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And my question is that, don't you think that maybe we need to know a little bit better the 17 goals and the indicators in order to engage with potential stakeholders in order to see citizen sciences in a different way?
Yeah, I think that at least for communities, from my experience, they don't really care about the SDG goals, no? But because they are already there, okay? So because they are worried about the specific aspects that are already covered, no, in SDG goals. But at least, but on the other side, for researchers, professional researchers, I think that this really helps because it frames and it justifies these efforts in a way or another, no? So, and then maybe it's much better to connect with some specific communities to work together in a citizen science practice, no? So that's one side. On the other side, I think that that's what I was trying to say in the talk, is that when I'm talking about the social dimension, I mean that we need to make a stronger connection no? From at least from coming from university, but I would say that from other places as well, and connect and try to face these SDG goals with other actors that are not ourselves. No? So in that sense, again, SDG goals and this big frame really helps to situate everybody. No? And okay, you're talking about that. It's like maybe it's a way of using a common language as well. No? So as you say, no, maybe I don't know, from the perspective of communities, I have the feeling that they don't really need much on this, but for the real concrete practices, but maybe okay, heads up, have a broader perspective, okay, let's collaborate with others. And this really helps to make the connection, okay? So we are online because the United Nations, which is a body that that everybody understands, and everybody understands the goals of that big body. And then, okay, so we are in this frame. Also, you can think globally in that way. Otherwise, we just think locally, which is great, but at the same time, we need to make this bridge. So I think that this is what it really helps SDG goals at that level. I mean, in the very practical level. I don't know if I'm answering your...
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Thank you, Miguel. I just saw Uta Ven also posted in the chat that regarding the SDGs, there are 2 sessions coming up today in the We Observe track. So there's one in the session after this at 11:30 and one at 20 to 3 this afternoon. So good tracks to go to as well to continue this discussion. So I want to say, if you're on the stream, you're welcome to stay. We still have enough spots empty for people who would like to join, but you can also, if you would like to, you can also click on leave on the top, and then you will still be able to watch, but feel free to stay. There are questions in the chat as well. I just want to mention quickly that people can join. If you joined a bit later, you can actually request to share your audio and video, and I can let you in so you can join our discussion here, sharing your video, and you can actually ask your question yourself. There's one question by Georgios Milonas. I'm hoping I'm said that right. He says he would like to ask Josep regarding collaboration with schools for citizen science that you mentioned in your talk. How did you approach this issue? So could you elaborate a little bit more on that, because it's an environment that has very specific characteristics. So how do you approach something like that in a school?
Yeah, so the first step that we did there, so first of all, what we have been working in the early beginning is to we experiment how to implement the specific projects that already exist inside school, but even I would say inside schools and with regular classes, let's say, okay, or what we can say as formal education, okay? And at that level, so we also ask students which were the values, okay, that they find in citizen science compared to regular classes, okay? Because also in that case, we were able also to talk with each teacher or say, okay, we need to work with you inside your program, okay, inside the curricula, okay, where to fit this in, and when you think that is better for you to intervene with your class, okay, for a few weeks, okay. And the main answer from students was that they like very much to work with citizen science because this was real science. Okay, so I think that that's something that it might sound like a bit strange, no? Taking the perspective from outside, but for them, because they were able to touch, they were able to get data on their own, they were able to do specific protocols that a serious scientist is doing. So this was very important for them. Secondly, was motivation, and motivation for the disciplines and the subjects that they were doing in school. So we found also that there were some specific students that they might have some problems, for instance, with some specific subjects, or they have problems in general of being in school because they don't like it or whatever. When you organize a kind of campaign of citizen science there with them, they are generally the leaders. Okay, so and this changed radically also the roles inside the classroom, and this is really great also specifically in science. Because some people, they self-discard themselves sometimes in science. No? I'm not good in math. That's not for me. No, this kind of discussion disappears when you talk in terms of citizen science, because everybody can do something in a project. Okay? And this was the first level. And the second level was more related about the possibility of understanding schools as a space, a communitarian spaces, because you have families there. And this is the example that I was showing in the presentation, that how we can make a big monitoring of air quality in Barcelona. Let's go to schools and public schools, because they are evenly distributed around the city, for instance, and that's really important in technical terms and scientific terms. No, not to do it everything in the same neighborhood and wait for call or make a general call. No. We want 2 schools per each district. Okay, and then with them try to do a kind of activity that is also good for families. Okay, so because also there is a general problem that in schools that families want to intervene more in the education of their child. No, so and a citizen science activity that can be a bridge. Okay, so that's something that is already happening inside the school, but at the same time it must happen in the public space and in the place that they generally play, in the playground, in the garden, whatever. Okay, so but then you need families there. Okay, so that was also another strategy. So understanding citizen science as a way of reinforcing communities around the schools.
Thanks so much for that, Josep. That's really, really interesting. And I think it also shows how involved this whole thing is, how you have to really think yourself into the community you're trying to engage, or the group of people. And it also shows the complexity a bit of citizen science, I think, and how much time you actually need to do something and to do a project properly, to really bring it to the people. And so I think that goes over to Abril Herrera Chavez's question. About early career researchers. If you want to pursue a career in citizen science, and it's so involved, there's so much time a project actually requires, and it's so competitive to receive and apply for grants. So what in your opinion would be the best way for a young career researcher to basically make this jump into citizen science?
It's not simple, honestly, at least in our case here. For instance, one of the students, Anna Cigarini, that is going to give a presentation in the next session on social, on the SOCIS session, that is going to talk about the mental health care project that we are just managing inside the COACT. For instance, is doing the PhD in another university, which is more, let's say, they have a doctorate program that is much more, let's say, less constrained, right? Because it's about a digital society, okay, which means everything, okay? But if you go to a physics program, then that's quite challenging, I admit. No? For instance, there was a student that was doing something related to mobility. Then it's much easier because you have the data from mobility, and then you can put some models, no, that are typically from physics, not taken from physics. So it's not easy. So there is no general rule, honestly. So at least here, that's a big challenge, and you struggle constantly with the rigidity or the rigor, that Daniel was saying before, inside our own institution. So I would say that universities are becoming, in that sense, sometimes a problem for enhancing citizen science. So it's not a place that you can easily grow, at least here in Spain. Maybe, hopefully, and there are specific institutions, even in Switzerland and in other cases, or in Netherlands, that they have already established institution working on citizen science, but this is not the case here, unfortunately. So that's a big challenge, I admit. But we are just solving this case by case, honestly.
Thanks. Yeah, I think one of the issues, if you can call it that, in citizen science is also communication. That takes up so much time. And David Noble is asking, participation in citizen science and citizen social science is voluntary. So it's really a challenge to recruit stakeholders that represent the range of perspectives that exist within that community as well. So how do you influence who gets involved? How do you shape that communication? Where do you start? What's the secret recipe that you would pass on?
That, for instance, at least in COACT, there is a partner that is already a stakeholder, or at least a civil society organization. Okay, and that's, we were wanting to make grow the project from early beginning with these actors already engaged in the project. Okay, so that's the first step, I would say. And we made just with, for instance, a social theater company, another project. Okay, and we start from scratch. We didn't decide the topic. Okay, so we worked together, and it appeared just gender violence as a main topic. No, so but I think that this really helps to make things easier in terms of recruitment, because they already engage, okay? Because they really believe that they need to proceed this course, no? If we talk about, let's say, public agencies and other institutions, that's another issue, okay? So in that case, what we are generally working on is that understanding some citizens projects, for instance, in the frame of the Science Biennale in Barcelona, okay? So that's something that is organized with the municipality, okay? And then they ask us to act as curators of an activity that they already understand as an activity, because they have to do a program, okay? So that makes easier for them, and they like very much to connect with other actors inside the municipality. Let's say, for instance, the Gender and Equality Office, or let's talk about Data and Transparency Office, no? So they like very much also to invite the other parts of the municipality to work together in a specific activity in a Science Biennale, no? So these kind of things, I think that is really good, as I said in the presentation, that it's good to think about that in the early start. Otherwise, it takes a lot of effort afterwards to convince people to be on board.
Thank you so much. There was one more question by Enric Sanabra Hidalgo, and I was just trying to send him a message to encourage him, because I think he joined a little bit late. Maybe he doesn't know to request access to share his audio and video, so maybe he can, there he is, so I'll join him so he can ask his question himself. Hi, Enric, welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, it's in order to not repeat the question, but I am in a position or a similar situation where the connection between learning by action and by citizen science with students or PhD candidates could be taken also as an opportunity to revisit the Sustainable Development Goals, which are, I agree, a good first step or a framework that enables to be concrete on the actions needed. But at the same time, I think that they could benefit from a critical review that can have many educational outcomes, like not take them as written on stone, but rather as a framework which can be improved progressively by doing research around it and by putting them at the center of the type of learning experiences that Josep is aware of. So that's my kind of meta question, no? Because it's something I'm really interested in, and I think could make a difference in how we start to use them in citizen science and taking the school as the opportunity to be not only critical about them, but to apply sometimes even common sense or see the real perspective from individuals besides of us as citizens or other stakeholders who are driven by them, I think, in more strict ways somehow.
Yeah, that's also helps. So maybe to answer the last question, what Enric was saying, we know very well, and we have been doing projects together. He's now in Paris, but we miss you here in Barcelona.
Yeah, you too.
So what I'm saying is that, yeah, I think that learning is a key asset. Okay, so they must understand, people that wants to be engaged and involved in a project, that they can be able to learn things that they don't know before. Okay, so that's the kind of maybe of transformation, that the first transformation that you have to put on the table, because otherwise they will not be. So if it is just extractive in the sense that maybe I think that Enric was saying, no, that okay, I want to know you, what are you worried about, no, what, no, and you take notes, no, and then what is the scientific question, no. So this is the kind of co-creation approach that sometimes we are over expressing, no? But also it is also very important that they must understand that through that process They are also learning to become more social, for instance, to be closer to people that is surrounding them. But also maybe you can also learn as participant how to draw better. So we are also using, for instance, drawing to better express yourself. No, but and they were really happy because they just discovered we're just inviting a sketcher, a person that is just doing some sketches, and just to explain them some strategies to provide some specific messages to recruit people inside in their neighborhood. Okay, so but they do that, not us as scientists. No, so you need to use this kind of strategies also to make them understand that even if it is just for a few minutes, that the experience of participation can also help them to better reflect on many other issues, or at least, or alternatively, to learn how to do something. And that's it. So that's the kind of transaction that at least we are personally, and also what Enrique, I think that I would say that he must agree, or he should agree, that we are just generally playing with. No? Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm raising your your understanding on this, Enrique.
Yeah. There's also some implicit layers of, or there's a ladder of skills and capacity that cannot be, and that requires some progressive or some iterative approach. And I wonder if the same as we can be wondering about the use or utility or usefulness of the SDGs, this is something that it can be even imagined that they can reach at some level in this kind of progressive empowerment, taking the different roles and even decision points of researchers. So I fully agree that this is something to discover in multiple ways, and as you say, by inviting them to break a boundary, and probably some of them will like to do it with the next one, because it's such a complex position, no, to be a researcher with all the implications and covering the challenges.
That, mutual learning is a big asset, and we shall not forget about that when we just try to start working with other communities and people in general, no? Because also diversity is going to be, I think that is also, we need to preserve generalities, well, especially in the co-creation session, for instance, no? And then, of course, if we are all diverse, I'm pretty sure that everyone here has something that is valuable for others, no? And then you start playing with this kind of listening, no, this kind of conversation just starts, no? And that's the kind of game that maybe I would not expect, being a physicist, to start playing this game, no? But anyway, I think that this is terribly necessary if you want to do citizen science.
Yeah, wait, Danielle, just a second. You have to unmute your mic. Can you do that at the bottom of your video? Yeah, perfect.
On the question of participation and diversifying participation, one of the things that we encounter, we live in a smallish town, 90,000 people here in Kolding in Denmark, but I think it maps quite well to other places in many regards. But what I find is that when we're recruiting people, there's only so much information that you can put in flyers or on websites or post to Facebook groups or ask people to deliver through existing social organizations and things like that. There's, you know, a lot of people sign up through word of mouth, and they email me and they say, "Oh, I didn't read any of the stuff, but this is exciting. I want to play part." And so I think here, at any rate, the aim to diversify participation has to be a long game. So it's over time, through doing projects, more and more people hear about the things that we're doing, and we slowly are able to diversify. And yes, diversifying through schools is really valuable as well, because schools are spread everywhere, so they're geographically diverse, but it also contains all of the young people between a certain age in the community, so reaching through schools can help. But I don't know. I'm curious to hear if you have anything to say that you've encountered that has been, you know, I love this idea of partnering with organizations that are already reaching diverse audiences. But I feel so limited by the fact that people won't read anything that I put out if it's longer than a catchphrase or a couple of catchphrases. And yet the work that I'm trying to do is actually quite complex, and it works on many, many different levels. So before we even get them to the participatory events, sometimes, you know, we like to do things with people in their homes and things like that. So you can't only gather them around a cultural, social, public kind of space. I was just interested, I guess, to hear if you had anything further to say about how you deal with that, maybe.
I just quickly throw in here, we have 1 minute left before the next session starts. So maybe just a really quick answer, and then we have to move on.
Well, I would, thanks, Simone. Yeah, and thanks, Danielle, I fully agree. So, but I think that then what we are starting to do is that not everybody needs to be everywhere. Okay, so that's so if we are dealing with diversity, also we need to also express the right that you can intervene in the project at different levels, no? Yeah. So at least in COACT, we are playing like, in terms of stakeholders, with organization with the knowledge coalition, that's how we call it, okay? But if we deal with, specifically with individuals, we have been building 2 levels here, okay? So one, the typical citizen scientist, no? That maybe is just a data provider, okay? And that's it, and they are happy with that, okay? And others that they want to be much more immersed, and maybe they are only 50. But it's really good to create this group in any case, because they will be happy. For instance, what we have been doing is to take a community center here in Barcelona, and we are there every Wednesday, okay? Yeah. Except this week, no, because we are busy here, no. But in any case, the idea is that, okay, so you can pass by there, and I will be there working, and if we want, we can start a conversation, no? So that's the kind of things that, for instance, Anna Cigarini in the presentation will talk about mental health, no? So that maybe can help you, and not to extend my expression here, no? But the idea is that there will be co-researchers that they are fully engaged, no? But others maybe is just spend a couple of minutes with me, no? And there are other means to do that, no? So yes, we need to diversify this participation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, unfortunately, we have to cut off here to go to the next session, but I would like to really thank everyone. Thank you, Josep, for the discussion, and Danielle, Miguel, and Enrique for joining us here, and also for everyone who posted questions in the chat. And if you have a little bit of time, it would be nice if you could fill out the evaluation sheet. That will be really helpful for the organizers to get your feedback on. So I hope to see you in the other sessions, and thanks again for being here. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.